Hey everyone, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the physiology behind what's going on with the skeletal system. So in particular, we're going to talk about the bone cells that are involved in regulating calcium levels in the body. And as part of that, I want to talk again a little bit about why calcium is important. But really, we're going to get at how the cells in the bones help regulate the amount of calcium in the blood. So let's go down here and talk a little bit about the actual bone cells. So we talked before a little bit about this kind of cell. So in the last video, I talked to you guys a little bit about osteocytes. Now, osteocytes live in these lacunae, these spaces within the bone matrix, and they extend out into these canaliculi, so these little structures, and they are there to maintain the bone material. Now, osteocytes are mature bone cells. And what I mean by that is they have sort of gone through a maturation process, and they're sort of the end product here. There is another kind of bone cell. This is called an osteoblast. Osteoblasts are immature bone cells. Osteoblasts eventually become osteocytes, at least they can. Here's the important piece. Make sure you're getting this down. Osteoblasts secrete calcium material. Osteoblasts build bone. So remember that blasts build. Osteoblasts secrete this material called osteoid. Osteoid is a bit like wet cement. So it's this calcium material, it's kind of fluid, and it hardens into bone material. And so you can see these osteoblasts actually sit on the outside of the bone matrix. They sit on the surface of the bone, they sit down here on the surface of the spongy bone, and their job, once we signal them, is to create this bone material. So their job, they're going to remove calcium from the blood. This other cell here, it's this ginormous cell, it's called an osteoclast. And I always try to remember that clasts collapse. Osteoclasts collapse. They remove calcium from the bone. So osteoclasts are used to break down this bone matrix. They take the calcium from the bone and they send it to the blood. So these two cells are used in one way to maintain the skeleton. So osteoblasts are used to add bone material. Osteoclasts remove bone material, and we can use those things to remodel the bones. So we can change the shape of the bone. If I want to change the shape of a bone, I can use the osteoclast to go in there, remove bone material, and then I can use osteoblasts to add bone material. But here's where they play a role in maintaining blood calcium levels. So blood calcium is really important, and I mentioned this in the last video. You guys need it for lots of stuff, contracting muscles, for example, releasing neurotransmitters. So it's very important that you have the right amount of calcium in your blood. Too little, you can't do those things. Too much, and you start depositing calcium in places where it shouldn't be, like the soft tissues. So, say you were to go out and just go on like this milk drinking binge. You decided you're going to hoard milk and you're just going to drink lots and lots of milk every day. Well, you're going to absorb that calcium and your blood calcium levels are going to go up. So here's how you compensate that. As your blood calcium levels go up, your thyroid is going to release a hormone that we didn't really talk about yet. It's called calcitonin. What calcitonin does is it stimulates the osteoblasts to take that calcium from the blood and deposit it in the bone. And so it's going to look kind of like this. Now this is from your text, and there's a lot going on here. But here's what's going on. Basically, your thyroid gland, when you have lots and lots of calcium, is going to release it's going to release calcitonin. The calcitonin is going to activate the osteoblasts. They're going to add bone material to the bone. That's going to reduce the amount of calcium in your blood. Now, calcitonin has multiple effects. One of the other effects is it reduces the amount of calcium that you absorb from the food that you're eating. So it tells the intestines don't absorb as much calcium. And then it tells the kidneys, we have all this extra calcium, we need to get rid of some of it. So your kidneys get really good at taking the calcium, putting it in your urine. So this is the big effect, that we're going to activate osteoblasts, but it also does these other things. So that's going to help your blood calcium level from getting too high. What about when it gets too low? So say you can't consume calcium. Say you are sick or you don't like calcium-rich foods. Here's what's going to happen. As your blood calcium levels fall, in order to be able to still contract the muscles and send nerve signals, what's going to happen is this: the parathyroid gland, which is there are 4 glands, they're on the back side of the thyroid, they're going to release parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone is going to activate those osteoclasts, and we're going to break down bone. And here's what that looks like. So if we look at it just from the osteoclast standpoint, so your blood calcium levels fall, the parathyroid gland releases parathyroid hormone, and the osteoclasts are activated. So the osteoclast will take the calcium we've stored in the bone, release it into the blood, and your blood calcium levels go up. Now, again, parathyroid hormone has multiple effects. And one of the cool things that it does is it actually, in your intestines, makes it easier for you to absorb calcium. So the absorption rate of calcium goes up. At the same time, it tells your kidneys, don't excrete calcium. Don't put it in the urine, hold on to it. All of those things help raise blood calcium levels.